In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the merciful. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome to this course for English. And in this course, in the first lecture, we will discuss some basic concepts regarding varieties of English language. What English is a name of different varieties of English. There are standardized varieties or non-standardized varieties. So we will discuss all these things, all these concepts with the passage of time, step by step. So in today's lecture, we will discuss some basic concepts. Without those, we must not move forward. And these concepts must be clear before starting some other things or some other concepts. So number one, you can see here standard and standard English. It's about 18th and 19th centuries when publishers or educationalists or educated people started to define a standard or parameter regarding the grammatical or lexical features of English language. And with the passage of time, with their continuous effort, finally they succeeded to form a correct and standardized variety, and that was considered acceptable and correct variety of English language. So before 18th century or 19th century, there was no concept of standardization or correct or incorrect or different varieties. This concept was unknown. Since English had by the 19th century two centers, standard English came to exist in two varieties. There are many two varieties that are, although there are many other varieties, standardized varieties also, but we can say up to the mark, um, accurately standardized varieties of the British and US, or British accent or American accent. So British accent is also known as received pronunciation, or American accent is now the name of General American, GA. So RP and GA, these are considered standardized varieties. So these were widely different in pronunciation, very close in grammar, and characterized by a small but noticeable differences in spelling and vocabulary. So these are the areas where we can find out the difference in pronunciation. Number one, then grammar, a little difference, a small difference we can see in both accents related to grammar. And then difference in spelling and vocabulary. And you can notice there are some spelling difference, like center or CENTER, center in America, or CENTRE in British. Or many other examples you can see. So there were those two more or less equally valid varieties of standard English. British standard and US standard. These are the two standard varieties known throughout the world, two standardized varieties, RP and GA, General American. So after discussing these standardized varieties, RP and GA, there are some non-standardized varieties also we can find out in local standards or local varieties of English language, because there are many people in this world who are non-native English language or second language learner or foreign language learner of English language. So they use English with local accents, local varieties, local standards. So this has been accommodated by saying that varieties that vary from one another and from British and US standard English in the way that British and US vary from each other can be counted as standard English, while varieties that vary more are non-standard varieties those are different from British and US standards. Those are called non-standard varieties or non-standardized varieties by type of prestige. What we can say about British people, still they have some sort of feeling of superiority because they are British people and they have very good accent, very good variety or standardized variety. Even from Americans, they are very proud of speaking English and they dislike local accents or local varieties because they say they are the owner of this language, English language, because what we can say this is the property of their this language. English language is the property of their English people or people of England or British. So, despite of the fact there are some other varieties, or even general American, a standardized variety, or Australian, or New Zealand, or Canadian. There are some other varieties, but still, despite of the fact, British people have some sort of feeling of superiority because of their accents. So, another socio-linguistic criterion for classifying varieties would be the type of prestige the variety gives its speakers. And here we will need to distinguish between overt and covert prestige. Overt means clear cut, explainable, or clear, or transparent, without any hidden agenda or without any hidden thing. And the second term, covert. Covert means hidden prestige. Overt, clear, and covert means that is not clear. Apparently, it's not clear, but it's also there is also feeling of prestige by using those varieties. So some varieties might give no prestige of any kind. For example, perhaps dying traditional rural dialects. So other might be stigmatized and called ugly or low class, but actually give covered status, hidden status, or what we can say, hidden feelings of this sort make their speakers appear warm, cool, humorous, masculine, or tough. These are the qualities, or what we can say. Because of these qualities, the people of the rural dialect, the people of accent that is not appreciated or ugly or low class accent, but still they use that accent. So because they like this accent, because some other qualities are associated with this prestige or this language or this accent or this variety. Here are some examples like Cockney or African American vernacular English. Vernacular means local English, or Jamaican Creole. So third, there are standard or near standard varieties which seems to be both over and a kind of common prestige. There are some varieties like educated Scotch, standard Singapore English, or Nigerian standard English. In their own areas, they give their users common prestige, make them sound educated, powerful, cultured, polite, and so on. But at the same time, they express loyalty or solidarity with their own community. So this is the examples of covered prestige. And as well as they show their qualities, or they as well as they show their loyalty or integrity with their own community, their own nation, or their own land or area or country. Scots, Singaporean, or Nigerian do not want to sound like Englishman or American. Here in Pakistan, we have a trend, we have opinion like we must speak English like native people, otherwise our English is not standardized. So now this trend has been changed. If your accent is different, if your local variety, or if there is the effect of L1 in your second language or in your English language, when you are speaking English language, or there is the effect of your mother tongue or provincial language, so it's not very bad. it's also accepted. Like Scottish people or Singaporean Nigerian people, they think that it's not bad thing that if we cannot speak like Englishman or British people or Americans. So if we are able to speak English, that's enough. If we are able to communicate with other people, that's enough, right? There's no need to change each and everything regarding our accents or pronunciation. Anyhow, if there's no problem with communication, if there are problems or faces some issues, sorry, and there is no communication, there is communication gap, then we must change some sort of accent. So it's not very bad. If we are Pakistani and we are recognized by our accent or by what we can say, but the accents are different accents from Englishman, from British, from Indian, from Bangladeshi. So it's not very bad. We want to show our own identity. Being a Pakistani, we are good speaker of English language. Being a Pakistani, we can communicate in their language, in non-native language. Here I want to give my own examples. During my stay in Malaysia, when I don't remember the exact location. I went into an office and there was a Nigerian guy, and he was saying, "Are you Pakistani?" And I said, "I was." When I was communicating with him, and he recognized my accent, and he recognized that I am a Pakistani. And I asked him, "How did you recognize?" He said, "Your accent. Your accent tells me that you are Pakistani." So I feel proud. It's not very bad if I am recognized by my accent, and my identity is also recognized with my accent. It's a very good thing. So finally, there are varieties which give almost prestige worldwide, principally the US standard with the general American accent and British standard with the RP accent. Because speakers may not wish to identify entirely with one group, we will find mixed varieties. So in the area of their accent with some pronunciation, signaling membership of one group and some of another. There are some countries or there are some societies where local standards or non-standard varieties or standard varieties are being used. Like local standard are used, local standard variety is being used by the educated people on formal situations, formal occasions, and non-standard varieties is used by the uneducated people. And it's called intermediate form rather than local standard or local form. Regarding the accents, regarding the varieties, there are some terms that we need to understand. There are basically three terms: acrolect, mesolect, and bacillect. These are the different varieties. Acrolect means there is a standardized varieties, and the mesolect means not very bad accent pronunciation, not very good or excellent, in the midway. We can communicate, we can speak, but not with the level of standardized accents or English, or not very bad that we are unable to communicate. So Bacillus is the midway, the middle level. Or Bacillus is a very poor pronunciation, poor accents, or some sort of communication breakdown could be occurred with this variety. So we will discuss in more greater detail. And these are the varieties: high, middle, and low ranges of continuum in these circumstances. So high variety is the acrolect variety, middle variety is a mesolect variety, and bacillus is a low range of variety. So it's often the case that there are more informal situations, the more bacillus and the speech. And so one person may speak mesolect at home and acrolect at work, and another may speak bacillus at home and mesolect to the boss in the formal situation or formal occasion. Here you can see this image here before you. It's not very clear, but I will tell you what is written over there. These are the three varieties. The top one you can say acrolect is an example of a Jamaican standard language. So acrolect, we can also English, Pakistani English also in this way we can put in this parameter or these three levels of accents or varieties of English language. So number one is here acrolect, the top one, or you can see these stairs. The top stairs, you can see the acrolect variety, excellent variety, or standardized variety. I'm eating the exact accent or pronunciation like native people pronounce this sentence. I'm eating, I'm eating. This is the acrolect variety. Then in the middle, come to the middle of the stairs, mesolect variety. So to some extent, it could be accurate. To some extent, it maybe it's not accurate. Some sort of problem. So here, is eating, right? Is eating, or rather than I am eating, means there is a grammatical problems, grammatical issues, or what we can say there are sentence structure problems. So because these are some sort of problem, but the communication is done in this way. I is eating or I am eating. It means it's sentence is related to some sort of eating or some sort of this type of activity. So the those part of this there you can see bacillect or grotesque Creole. Creole we will discuss next slide. Creole or Pidgin and Creole, these are the also accents of English language, but the starting point of it. We will discuss these later. Bacillect or grotesque Creole. Bacillect, the lower variety, the uneducated people use this language, and there are many hurdles, many troubles, many issues. So it's not, and this is a mixture of local words, even local vocabulary or lexicon. Here, the word eating is also changed with the Nayam. It's a Jamaican language. Nayam, maybe it's about related to eating. So, Nayam. So the basic word, basic vocabulary has been changed in the Bachelor's variety. So these are the three standardized, sorry, these are the three levels of English variety. Again, standard English to Bachelor's, the range is here. You can see it's very clear image in this slide. I told him, I told him. And number one, I told him is a standard English. Number two, I told him it's the acrolect. Standard English, I told him, acrolect. These are the same thing. I told him. I told him, not I told him. It's a mesolect. There's some sort of slight difference in the accent or slight difference in the words or vocabulary or lexicon. I tell him. Here you can see the grammatical mistake, tense mistake. So this is also called mesolect. There's the communication is done. It means it's near to standardized English. Although it's not a standardized English, or it's not a what we can say acrolect accent, but it's near to acrolect or near to standard English. And move towards the bacillect. Me, tell, he. Here again, you can see the communication is done, but very least communication, and we are unable to make me tell he or me tell him. Not understandable very easily. So these are me tell e, me tell am, or me tell he. These are the bacillect varieties, and what we can say this is a problematic varieties. And this is the range that we can say how far the level is from standard English, which means bacillect variety. We are talking about the bacillect, the foremost or remotest variety or remotest level of standard English is the bacillect, and the nearest, what we can say, in the middle of the accent. This is not a standardized English, not a bacillect. This is a middle one. So the dialect which we call standard English is not necessarily linked to a standard pronunciation. It could just as well be pronounced with a localized Manchester or Norwich accent. It has been estimated that 12% of the population of England are speakers of Standard English, 9% speak Standard English with a regional accent, or then however, Standard English is often still linked to received pronunciation. When we talk about standardized English, Standard English, it means we are talking about received pronunciation, RP. So there is another classification of English accents that was made by Trezil and Hanna for their pioneering textbook International English was published in 1982. The classification identifies four main types of English language on the basis of what are the bases English-based accents, including English as England, Wales, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. These are the English-based accents of variety, and it's about the English or British speakers. Next, American-based, including English as spoken in the USA or Canada. Next, number three, Scottish-based, including Scotland and Northern Ireland. And then there's Irish based. This is the Republic of Ireland. These are the four levels of accent. Some other more important criteria for difference in accents we can also find out here. The quality of vowel sounds, like versus a, um. In the sound is ah. In hat, we have to open our mouth more and more wide. Hat, cap. So this is the quality of vowel in words such as bath or bath, hat and hat, or dance and dance. So bath in American, cap in American, dance in American, or bath in British, half in British, or dance in British accent. Then there's the absence of non-rhotic accents or presence in rhotic accents. So British accent is called non-rhotic accent. And I will also share the link of a video related to this rhotic and non-rhotic accents. Please watch this video because you will be able to understand more easily understand this rhotic and non-rhotic accents. So rhotic accents means American accents and non-rhotic accents means we are talking about British accents. So what is rhotic and non-rhotic? What is the letter that we are that we can understand? This is the R sound, R letter. British do not pronounce the R sound in the final position or before a consonant like here or walk, here or walk. Whereas Americans pronounce the sound, Americans pronounce the R sound, whether it's the final position or before a consonant, they pronounce the R sound. That's why they call it rhotic R, right? Or rhotic accent. Here or work, they pronounce the R sound clearly. Next, there is a degree of closeness in the front vowels, as in pan or pan, or front or back vowels in words such as father or part. Next is the absence or presence of contrast in length and vowel quality in word pairs such as caught and caught. Next, there is the absence or presence of voice in intervocalic tasm, as in later or letter. These are the also different in both varieties. Next, the term that we need to understand, the norm. What does it mean? The term norm or for the implicit set of rules. Implicit means hidden set of rules. Speakers appear to use for what it's appropriate to say, in what grammatical or social context, in what way they need to speak, in what way they have to speak, or what are the standards what are the parameters, what are the norms that non-native people have to apply or non-native people have to use while speaking English language. So these are the hidden set or implicit set of rules. They know, although we at beginner level, the learner of second language or a foreign language, uh, they have to learn those rules and they have to understand those rules. But with the passage of time, the rules are forgotten, and they know what are the rules, or these this is a set of basic rules or grammatical rules, or what we can say different standards that non-native people have to use while they are speaking English language. So when we say that Northern Irish English tends to use the base form of the verb with they as subject, but the as form with plural nouns. The girl does that. They do that. So we are describing the norm of Northern Irish English. The girl does that. Whereas the English standardized, we talk about English standardized English, the girls do that rather than the girls does that. So it's a norm of Northern Irish English rather than standardized English or rather than RC English accent or GA English accent. Codification and use in writing. There are at least four stages in language standardization: selection of language conventions or their acceptance by an influential group, their diffusion or their maintenance by some authoritative institution. 40. Selection of language conventions or language traditions or language rules. And then there's the acceptance of those parameters, those standards, those guidelines. And then there's the spread of those guidelines, those standards, the norms, the parameters. And after diffusion or after spreading those known parameters, there is effort done by some authoritative institutions to maintain that level of accent or that level of difference or that level of what we can say different standards. So in the first stage, one norm is selected by some powerful group. Who are the powerful group? Definitely educated people or elite class or researchers or what we can say teachers. So these are the powerful groups from the various norms existing in the particular area. Typically, a state this is based on the prestige of the norm rather than the any linguistic feature. Standardized varieties are usually based on the norms of the capital, the educated classes, the dominant ethnicity, and so on. For example, as what was later to be called standard English started to emerge initially as a norm for writing in the 15th or 16th centuries, a long, long time ago. So it was based on the language of the court in London and the London publishers, the social and educational elite class at Oxford, in Cambridge, and so on. Then they started to do work and then they did effort to make this language or this accent a standardized accent. So then after their effort, after codification, after refinement of their accent or their what we can say variety, they uh, they showed that this is the correct standardized English, and if they not forced, but mostly people knew about this standard variety, and mostly people, majority of the people start to use that particular standard or correct English by themselves. As the rules are being formulated, the acceptance for them must be sought from influential groups like religious authorities, civil servants, publishers, for teachers, and social elite, and in 17th century, particularly the royal court. They started to accept that norm, they started to accept that standard English. So once they are accepted, they are diffused, then there is a need to spread all this what was done by the educationalists or by the religious scholars or by the elite class or by teachers, by the priests or by the what we can say, the religious scholars. So then there's a need to diffuse it, to spread it, and then there's a need to maintain, I'm sorry, maintain that variety. So diffusion is typically accompanied by elaboration of form and function. For example, at the same time as Standard English was developing, it took over a great deal of Latin and Greek vocabulary that allowed it to fulfill the functions in science, theology, it's related to religion, or philosophy previously performed by Latin, related to diffusion or maintenance of their accent and variety. So at a fairly late stage in the standardization or after codification or refinement, process codification becomes possible and seen as desirable. In the course of the 18th century, English grammar books and dictionaries started to be produced defining what they called correct uses for both speech and writing. So we can find two types of principles or processes. At number one, people should do this one. People should pronounce words according to the making norms or standardized norms in written and speaking of words. Or the second one, not only they should do, they must be condemned. Is it possible to condemn people, to what we can say, to compel people, to enforce people for not allowing the rules, and social discrimination on a linguistic basis becomes possible. So what we can say, hidden agenda, social discrimination or linguistic discrimination on the part of or on the basis of accent or variety, what sort of variety a person is using, or acromate variety, or mesolect variety, or bacillate variety. What sort of accent or variety the person is using, he or she must be valued according to the accent. So this was also possible when the new standards or standardized norms were created or well established. So linguistic discrimination or social discrimination were also occurred. There are different many varieties until the 20th century which were used in writing, and there are no perspectives used for correct grammar, following a vocabulary. Correct usage, the norm is just what people say. So what they say, and that was acceptable. So other varieties like Caribbean Standard English, Indian Standard English, or Nigerian Standard English are at a fairly early stage of standardization where some selection has taken place and the selection norm is accepted in some quarters or but not just generally. So it's not like standardizing. It's like local varieties or there is a process of codification or there is a process of what we can say selection of the words, there is the acceptance, word, but there is a no, what we can say there is a no spread or maintenance of those varieties. Schroeder and Hannah define standard English in this way that according to them there is no enforcement by the people of native English language or by the people of native norms or by British people or Americans or other standardized varieties. There is no restriction. There is no enforcement to use any sort of pronunciation. And however, they say that the British prestige or British accent or received pronunciation is extremely well codified. It's the oldest, what we can say, oldest accent or variety that is being used by the native and non-native people. So this is well codified. This is what we can say. It has crossed the process of refinement or well establishment. So it is well accepted and was not at one time prescribed for broadcasting and diffused by the people as described in Tony Harrison's poem, Teen and Osh. So the trend over the last 40 years has been to reduce or abandon attempts to standardize English pronunciation. So now the paradigm has been changed. This paradigm shift has been changed. At one time, when there was what we can say focus and emphasis on the accurate pronunciation, accurate accent, accurate variety, to use accurate variety by the non-native people, but now this trend has been changed. Now one person must communicate no matter what accent or variety he or she is being used, he or she is using. So there must be communication. There must not be communication breakdown, right? If a person is able to communicate or conversate with the other non-native people, so it means there is no restriction to use a particular standardized variety or accent. So this paradigm has been changed right now. Okay, this is the end of our today's lecture. Goodbye. Take care.